Hi, Tam here. It's been a long time, almost actually 2 months, a little bit longer than 2 months, since I last uploaded a speaking video, right? You'll have to forgive me. After I left the cruise ship, I traveled a bit. I was in Australia for a while. Then I had to go to a medical conference in New York. So I ended up doing Sydney, Dubai, New York. And from there I went to Miami for business initially. And then later on stayed in Miami for pleasure. And went back to Dubai and then arrived in Johannesburg just 3 days ago. And so now I am in Johannesburg, South Africa for the next 7 days, maybe 10, we'll see. But I'm going to try and be much more regular now. The goal is to upload a video at least every week. That would be ideal. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah? Anyway, the topic today that I'd like to discuss is, should you become a doctor? Well, I'm sorry, probably you can hear the thunder and the rain. Initially, I wanted to wait for the rain to stop and the thunder to stop, but it's been raining like that for the last few days now, so it might never stop, right? So let me just make this video, and sorry about the thunder and the rain and stuff. I'll try to edit this video a bit and take the noise of the rain down a bit, So, yeah. Basically, you can go to medical school at any age, right? From my experience, when I was a young medical student, some of my fellow students were in their 40s. And 1 or 2 were in the early 50s, I think. Right? So yeah, medical school, like any other kind of school, right? You can go to medical school at any age. But let's talk about the choice of going to medical school. Should you go to medical school? First, let's talk about the negative aspect of becoming a doctor or being a doctor, coming from yours truly, a doctor. Well, I mean, to answer the question, right, I would say yes, absolutely, bearing in mind that you are willing to put up with all the cons, all the negative stuff, and all the disadvantages of being a doctor versus the good stuff. If you know about the negative aspect of medicine and being a doctor, and you fully agree to embrace that and make it part of your life, then yes, absolutely. If you're not ready for that, then no. Fair enough. So the negative stuff, right? Here we go. When I was in medical school, quite a number of medical students dropped out. In my first year of medical school, nobody dropped out. But in my second year, I remember 2 people that I knew that dropped out. And in my third year of medical school, there were some few more people who decided that no, that's not for them. And in my internship year, I know of 2 interns who decided to quit medicine. And as a working doctor, I know quite some few doctors who've decided to just quit and do something else. I know one who became an entrepreneur and ended up doing very, very well. And I know one lady as well who decided to quit. She was a surgeon. And again, she told me that she was now making 10 times the money she was making as a businesswoman, right? Import, export, buying stuff, selling stuff, business. And I know of another guy actually who went into property and initially ended up building a guest house, later on a bed and breakfast type of thing. And now, that's many, many years after that, like 10 years later, is fully invested into properties and rentals and stuff like that. He's very happy, he's doing very well. He told me he would never be doing that well had he still stayed working as a doctor. He was also a surgeon. All right, so the point is, you might think from the outside that being a doctor is wonderful, but once you're on the inside, you might just realize that it's not for you, right? So know why you want to become a doctor. Otherwise, you're going to end up in medical school and you live a rude awakening. If you're going into medicine, like many students, for the purpose of enriching yourself, you are going to be bitterly disappointed. You'll do okay, but chances are you're not going to be driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff like that every day of your life. It's only on TVs that doctors are driving Rolls Royces and Bentleys and stuff like that. So in every country, right, you will find some doctors who are extremely wealthy, driving Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces and having private jets and stuff like that. Yes, but this is the minority of people. This is 1% of doctors. And when you think about the 1% in any country of the world, this has nothing to do with their chosen profession. This is more to do with the fact that these are entrepreneurs, right? So the wealthiest of doctors are not wealthy because of the application of their medical skills, but more because they branched out into business ventures. Yes, he or she is a doctor, but also an entrepreneur, with a hand into property, into investments, into, different things, different areas of investments. And so you can be a dentist, being extremely wealthy, because you're an entrepreneur more than a dentist. You could be a photographer, but the entrepreneurship side has made you very wealthy. You've got your galleries and stuff, right? You could be a gardener, and you've transformed your business into a very, very successful gardening venture. So you can be a garbage man with an entrepreneurial mind and make millions, right? So the point is, you don't need to be a doctor for that. So if you're going into medicine for the money, no, that's not a good idea, because you might get disappointed. And in fact, you will be disappointed from the medical point of view, right? If you do get very wealthy just by doing medicine, then you're going to have to work extremely, extremely long hours, and you're going to have to throw all your ethics out the window. You can't be a doctor and be 100% ethical in the way you deal with other human beings, with your patients, and become super wealthy. That's not possible. But if you're only interested in the financial aspect of your field, and you don't really care about the needs of your patients, then yes, work extremely long hours, be ready to kill yourself with work, burn all ethical considerations, and make as much money as you can, but you're not going to be happy, right? So, know why you want to go into medicine. If it is to enrich yourself, no. All right? Number 2 is being a doctor. There is medical risks involved in it. You are dealing with sick people. People who have infectious diseases. Now, especially if you are an emergency doctor, an internal medicine doctor, an ICU specialist, a pediatrician, and even to a certain extent, a surgeon actually, you are exposing yourself to serious medical diseases. You see patients with serious infectious diseases, serious cases of influenza. When there's a new, dangerous, life-threatening strain of influenza emerging, it's not the guy who's working at the bank who's going to be at risk. Although, yes, somebody could be sick and coming into the bank and coughing all over the place and make you sick. Yeah, it's possible, Or you could be in the subway and, somebody sick next to you and, they could infect you. But when you are in hospital, when you are working as a doctor, you are 100% exposed to those people because these people are sick and they're coming to you for help. So you're seeing all the sick people. This one has influenza, this one has tuberculosis, this one has hepatitis, this one has SARS, and this one has, you're seeing all the serious cases there, and you're exposing yourself to all the diseases of the world. Not only that, after work, you are going back home, and you are exposing your friends, your family, your loved ones to the diseases that you've been exposed to at work. And what will happen after some few years is that your immune system is going to become so strong that you won't be affected by all these diseases, right? But you're still going to carry these viruses and these bacteria back home, and you might make your kids sick. You might make your wife, your partner sick. Your family, your friends, you might make them sick because you become a carrier of disease. And that's the reality. It's happened to me that I saw a patient with a strange rash on his back. And then some few days later, boom, I'm getting the same rash, and I'm thinking, oh shit, I got that from this patient. And I'm sure it has happened to most doctors who are treating patients. That sometimes you see a patient with a certain condition, usually like a skin rash or something, and then later on you get the same rash. And now you know right away that I caught that from this person, right? People are coughing in your face. Sometimes you're inspecting or you're doing an oral examination. Somebody's got a tonsillitis or some other problems, and you've got your equipment there. You say, open up. They open up. You're looking in their throat there. You're looking into their mouth, you're looking their throat, and they just cough into your mouth and your eyes. Right? And you get these drops of saliva hitting your mouth, your lips, your tongue, your eyes, and you're like, oh my God, you know. It happens all the time, actually, you know. And that's why now, or rather for some years now, whenever I examine somebody's tonsils or anything like that, I always wear a mask, right? You've got some patients with meningitis, right? With meningococcal meningitis, with viral meningitis, with all types of meningitis. And some of those are very infectious and very dangerous. And you treat them, you examine them, you treat them, you send them on their way after a lumbar puncture. And then some few hours later, the internal medicine physician tells you that, oh yeah, by the way, it's confirmed meningococcal meningitis, by the way. And you're like, oh shit, you know. And now you have to take a prophylactic course of medication, you know, just to make sure you don't get sick. But I know of a doctor who got meningitis from a patient. I know of a doctor who allegedly got HIV from a patient. Needle prick injuries are very common. Be aware of that. Sometimes you prick yourself. Sometimes somebody else is pricking you. I was pricked when I was a final year medical student. Not pricked, stabbed. Right? So there was a very sick patient there, HIV positive, and stage AIDS. CD4 count of less than 20. You know, wasted, weak, massive esophageal and oral candidiasis. And this intern was taking blood from the patient. And he's got his needle, his hypodermic needle attached to the syringe. And he's got a good amount of blood, about 10 mils of blood. And he's having the blood in his right hand. And he's telling a story. And then pointing somewhere, while telling the story. Yeah, so the guy was like, and then he points like that, and I was on his right side, and he almost stabbed me in the neck with that needle. But I put my hand up, and he stabbed me in the hand. I wasn't pricked. I was stabbed, a good stab. It went in and out. And you know, I was like, oh God, shit. I was scared to death. I thought, I've just been given HIV. So, that day was probably one of the hardest days in my career as a doctor. Actually, that day was the hardest. That week was the hardest week in my career as a doctor. And I wasn't even a doctor yet. I was a final year medical student. What a start, you know? And I'm looking at the patient, and I'm reading his file, and no doubt, this guy is HIV positive, he's got AIDS, he's got a massive viral load of HIV in his system. Massive viral load. Extremely low CD4. And I took his blood and my blood as protocol, and I took the 2 specimens to the lab, and you know, I tested negative. But I wasn't convinced. And by the way, I mean, back then, I mean, I was a final year medical student. That should be 2001. Yeah, so I mean, you know, it was about 17 years ago. The window period then was about 3 months. So you could still test negative today, and within 3 months, 0 convert. Because you know, all your ELISAs and stuff and PCRs were not as advanced. Besides, in the lab, it was a public hospital, right? It was an academic hospital. They were not even doing PCR, they were doing ELISA. ELISA times 2, you know? So anyway, they did ELISAs on the both of us. This guy was positive, and well, to cut a long story short, I was negative. 3 months later, I was still negative. But then I was so traumatized that I tested myself at 4 months, at 5 months, at 6 months, at 7 months, at 8 months, at 9 months, at 10 months, at 11 months, at 12 months. And I remained negative, and I thought, oh, thank God. But you know, this is the risk, man. I mean, you know, this is the risk that you're running. You can contract any kind of disease from your patients. You know, sometimes it's not even your fault. It's the fault of somebody else. All right? Know the risk if you choose to become a doctor, because the risk exists. Like I said, some doctors have died of illnesses that they've contracted from their patients. Some doctors have you know, have had a negative outcome trying to help others, you know. So yeah, so be aware of that. You know, the business of medicine can be dangerous, you know. I don't need to remind you about Ebola. Yeah, Ebola was very, very publicized. But there are a lot of other diseases that can kill you just as fast. And then there are some unknown diseases. Your patient's coming with a PUO, pyrexia of unknown origin, or FUO, fever of unknown origin. And you do all the tests that you can do, and it's all negative. And you have no idea what's going on. And he ends up in the internal medicine ward for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and nobody knows what's going on. But he's very sick. So because you don't even know what's going on, you don't even know that what he has is or is not contagious. Can you imagine? And you can't be going to work in an hazmat suit. Of course not, you know? So yeah, just know that, you know, you might get sick, and you might, or if you're not getting sick, you might make you. This is always my biggest fear, to make the people that I love and I know, my family, you know, sick. Yeah. Anyway, it is what it is, man. You know, we doctors.